Hello, and welcome to another Fantasy Premier League video. My name is Steve, and my assistant manager was active for the second week in game week 32. And it started off better than I could have hoped, with Palace going up 2-0 early on in that City fixture at the Etihad. But that was very short-lived. That was probably one of the two worst performances I've seen from Crystal Palace. And it was not at all helped by Glasner making crazy decisions, like subbing off Mateta at half-time when you're 2-2 with City. I have no idea what he's trying to do there. Are you like, subbing off Mateta for Hughes and shut down the game at half-time to try and hold out a draw against last year's league winners? I don't understand that decision at all. Thankfully, I did bring in Murphy for my only transfer this week, and his 19 points, which helped me to a very healthy 83 points for the game week. Now we've got another double game week ahead of us in game week 33, and there will probably be lots of chips in play for game week 33 as well, with bench boosts, maybe some late triple captains, and there are a whole bunch of assistant managers out there as well. I'm also wildcarding next week in the blank game week 34, so I'm actually only looking to bring in players for just the 1 week in game week 33. So in this video, we are going to go through who I'm switching my assistant manager to, where I'm spending my other free transfer, as I do have 2 free transfers heading into game week 33, and then captaincy, which is a little bit tricky in game week 33. So very quickly, I'll just touch off a couple of the key points in game week 32. It was a pretty frustrating game week. I mean, I have scored pretty well, but it could have been so much more. I will start off with Murphy, who was probably my best, or the best transfer in all season. He was the only transfer that I bought in for game week 32, and his 19 points basically made up 25% of my total game week points. And that goal against Crystal Palace was unreal. Now he looks across the box to pick out a cross, saw Henderson ever so slightly out of position. I don't think Henderson's made a big mistake here at all. Yeah, he's slightly out of position, but it doesn't really matter because where Murphy is, which is 3 to 4 yards off the byline on the hard right-hand side of the box. So it's a ridiculous angle to even be attempting to shoot from in the first place. So I do understand Henderson kind of cheating a little bit and leaving a little bit of a gap at the near post, but even still, Murphy just looks up, sees him slightly out of position, and then hits it off the laces without swing into the top bins near post. I mean, take your hat off, son. That is an unreal goal. He also came away with a couple of assists, 19 points for the game week. Huge score, very much needed in my team. Would have been horrible if I didn't bring him in. Now, on the frustrating side of things, Eze, man, what are you doing, mate? He's under 20% owned. He's a huge differential heading into the double game week. Now, in that very first fixture, he's offside in that City fixture. Would have put Palace up 3-0 against City because he did finish the goal. Really good finish, by the way, from outside the box. But he ends up being offside because he's looking directly down the line of defenders. It's about as clear as day. He's got perfect vision, doesn't bend his run, doesn't slow down his run. It's kind of counterintuitive, but it's actually a little bit lazy because you don't want to slow yourself down because you know you're going to need to speed yourself up again. So you actually are going to have to put in more effort even if you bend your run. And then he goes down to score the goal. That could have also changed the game state to a point where Glasner might have actually pulled in some points against City. I mean, 3-0 up at the Etihad. Maybe then you can actually shut the game down. It might have knocked City off their game. I mean, I am maybe clutching at straws here based on how the rest of the game went. But it was almost as if, like, that goal was disallowed. That gave Man City like a bit of a pep, maybe even brought Palace down a little bit. They just go on to concede 5 unanswered goals. I mean, kind of crazy. And then the penalty against Pope. I mean, the stutter run up for a penalty technique is actually a really good technique when you use it right. Basically, what you're doing is you're playing chicken with the keeper. So you look as if you're just going to run up, bang the ball in. Then you stutter to see if the keeper commits to a direction. And then if he doesn't commit to a direction, you kind of edge up even closer to see if he then commits to a direction. And as soon as the keeper commits to one way to dive, basically he puts his foot out to give him the ability to propel in the opposite direction. And you basically just pass the ball to the foot that went out to the side because he's going to go the other way. And when you do this, you don't actually need to hit the corner or use any sort of power because basically the keeper's off balance. There's no way you can get back to the other direction. You've got a whole bunch of goal to aim for. However, if the keeper does hold his nerve and never commits to a direction, you have to pass the ball into a corner. Doesn't even matter which one. You also don't even need a hell of a lot of power because the keeper's basically saying, no, I think you're going straight now, and he's not really committing to a dive. So you have to go like quite into the corner, but it doesn't have to be too hard. Now, keepers rarely, very rarely, stay rooted to the spot in penalties. They basically always dive. But if they do, it is very hard for them to generate enough power or enough of a dive out of a very stationary start to get themselves all the way across to the corner to save the eventual shot. But Eze, you have to hit the corner, mate. He basically panics when Pope doesn't move, almost getting caught in the headlights because Pope is standing still and he hasn't had a predefined side of the goal that he's going to go for, and he passes the ball straight to Nick Pope and misses the penalty, getting the -2 points. I mean, it could have been a huge game week from Eze. Would have given me a much bigger boost in the ranks. Very much needed boost as well, by the way. Uber frustrating. Also didn't help with the Glasner points, which I did have my assistant manager on as well. I mean, I got a couple of other decisions right. I mean, Rodgers, there was a lot of fear-mongering about Rodgers heading into game week 32. Lots of people saying he's going to get rested for Southampton. Now, I was pretty sure Rodgers was going to be fine. I mean, I did get a little bit worried because, well, last week I was predicting a start for Saka, and I did get those minutes projections wrong. Didn't matter to me because I wasn't actually bringing Saka in. But having made that projection and then getting that wrong, and then people saying Rodgers is not going to start, and me thinking, oh shit, have I got this wrong as well? But I was pretty sure he was going to start. I was definitely starting him over Marino. He came away with assist and actually ended up playing 84 minutes. So there was really no fear at all of Rodgers playing that game. I did bench Marino as I thought Trossard was going to start in that number 9 position. Trossard did start in the number 9 and played the full 90 minutes. I did actually think Marino was going to be playing deeper in that Arsenal fixture, but he was also benched and only came on for the final 15 minutes. So that was a 5-point swing, pulling in Rodgers over Marino. That was pretty much it. I mean, Livramento was the benefactor from the Eze penalty miss, keeping the clean sheet, 5-0 demolition. Mamouche scored a goal, Salah with the assist, 83 points. There were a lot of chips in play in game week 33. There were triple captains on Isak. There were bench boosts all over the place. And there was a whole bunch of assistant managers. Eddie Howe did really well on the assistant manager this week. Glasner ended up being a huge fail in my team, only pulling in 2 points. That is the risk of going with the double table bonus fixture approach. I was hoping for just one draw across the two. Instead, they concede 10 goals. Now, we will go into a little bit more detail on Crystal Palace because I am switching away from Glasner this week, going against my pre-planned moves. But I did manage to beat my safety score by 9 points, giving me another healthy green arrow. And we move on to game week 33. So on Glasner and Crystal Palace, as I said in the intro, Palace were really poor, started really well, up 2-0, but then they concede 5 goals, unanswered goals against City, and then another 5 unanswered goals against Newcastle. Glasner pulling off Matera for Hughes at halftime, not at all helping the team. I think I basically watched Palace put on the flip-flops in real time in that City fixture. I did stay up to watch the game. I just watched them kind of, as soon as that third goal was disallowed, it just completely changed. They were actually playing really well. I was looking at it going, holy hell, Palace are going to get a result here after that first 30 minutes was played. And it all basically turned really quickly. Now, I did have plans to hold on to Glasner for the 3 consecutive weeks, as there are more table bonus fixtures on offer for Glasner in game week 33. But that was when Palace were looking good. I made that decision when Palace were actually humming. They were looking really good. I have now seen them play two really bad games in a row, and so I'm having to call an audible on the assistant manager and invest one of my 2 free transfers into switching my assistant manager chip. So I'm obviously going for a double game week manager. There are only 4 to choose from. Glasner, who I'm moving away from. Emery doesn't have any table bonus on offer and has much harder fixtures, even without the table bonus. And so I'm just immediately ruling Emery out here. I think it has to be between Pep and Arteta. So I'm currently doubled up on City with Guardiola and Mamouche. And I'm also doubled up on Arsenal with Raya and Marino in the team. Marino being a bit of a differential heading into double game week 33. So the assistant manager position is actually tied into what I'm going to be doing with the Murphy slot, who I just brought in last week. I did bring him in for a 1-week punt, as I did pre-plan to then move Murphy along for some sort of double game week midfielder, with Saka being the most likely candidate. Now, to max out on City, to bring in my 3rd City player, I don't really know which midfielder I'd go for, given there aren't any really secure minutes out there. I mean, KDB is probably top of the list, but I mean, KDB hasn't been KDB that we know of him for quite some time. Yeah, he could definitely pull in some points, but he could also have reduced minutes, could be off his game. And even in just a straight shootout of just Saka versus just KDB, I think I'd probably still go with Saka anyway, even if I didn't have this assistant manager decision tied up in the mix. But with the added bonus of also being able to basically buy a nailed on City asset of Pep Guardiola as the assistant manager and also bringing in Saka, I think that's probably the most likely way I'm going to end up going here. And I'll just talk you through the Saka decision now to explain why that is probably where I'm going to go. Now, if we knew Saka was going to be playing 180 minutes this week, or this game week, I think he'd probably be everyone's captain. I mean, Ipswich away is a phenomenal fixture. Based on what we've just seen from Crystal Palace, that is also an equally phenomenal fixture for Saka. So it really just comes down to Saka's minutes for the game week. Now, my prediction, caveat, I did get last week's prediction wrong. I thought he was going to start and get, subbed off late in the second half, but he was benched and only came on for the last half an hour of the game. Now, I think Saka probably does actually start both of these matches with the plan to sub Saka off in the second half, probably averaging around about 60 to 75 minutes per match. I think these are the types of games where Arteta will just look at it and go, well, we still want to finish high enough up the table. We could probably get these games won, probably even in the first half. We might even see Saka come off at half time if, say, Arsenal are up 3-0 against Ipswich or something like that. So it could even be less minutes, but I think the minutes will come down if the result is already further out of reach. But there are the UCL semi-finals that are just around the corner as well, which needs to be kept in mind, which is probably where I actually went wrong with my predictions last week. Now, Ipswich, great fixture. Even 60 to 75 minutes against Ipswich is huge for Saka. Similarly with Crystal Palace, I think they're probably on the beach now. 60 to 75 minutes against Crystal Palace is also amazing. And so I think Saka is firmly within the captaincy conversation this week, which really means that I do need to prioritize bringing Saka in. So, long-winded way of saying that Saka will be my third Arsenal asset coming in, and that will allow me to bring in Pep Guardiola in replacement of Glasner in my team to use my 2 free transfers in game week 33. Now, should I take any sort of hits here to get one more doubler in? Now, in this formation, you will see that I do have Isak sitting on the bench at the moment. Now, it's either Salah away to Leicester or Isak away to Aston Villa. Now, I've got no thoughts of selling Salah for Leicester. I've been targeting Leicester for like the last 3 or 4 game weeks, and it's been working incredibly well. So there's no reason to stop now. That also basically discounts me trading out Kanate for a hit anyway. I will be maxed out on my midfielders, so there's pretty much no point in looking to trade out Isak either. And I might even end up holding on to Isak through my wildcard. I haven't really even looked too closely at the wildcard yet. I'm just using it to handle the blanks next week. So I won't be selling Isak, won't be selling Salah, also won't be selling Kanate because of the Leicester fixture. So it really comes down to, do I want to sell Livramento for a hit to get one more double game week player? Now, I don't like taking hits for defenders at the best of times. This is slightly different because it is a double game week. However, I will be maxed out on City and Arsenal, and so that only leaves Palace, who I have less than 0 interest in investing in their defense. In fact, I went against Munoz because I didn't like the way the defense was looking, and that actually helped me bring Glasner in. I mean, Glasner only pulled in 2 points, but Munoz got a -1 across the double game week. And then there's Villa, who's coming up against Newcastle at home and Man City away. And I really don't have any interest in bringing any defender in from Villa for a hit either. So there will be no hits. I'll be playing with, 8 doublers, 9 once you count Pep Guardiola as my assistant manager. So I'll be playing with 12 this week, and I think that's how I'm going to be heading in. And so that all that leaves is captaincy. Now, very quick shout out here to Craig Element, who I was discussing in the comments with last week. And I was talking to him about the minutes projections for Saka. Now, Craig Element basically got his Saka predictions almost spot on. I think he said about 20 to 25 minutes. Saka came away with 30. Now, Saka started in the second leg of the Champions League on Thursday, New Zealand time. I think that's Wednesday over there. in England and scored, playing 77 minutes. And then he will have 3 full days rest before that Ipswich fixture. But then Arsenal have a pretty quick turnaround as they have 2 full days rest in between before going to Crystal Palace on that third day. But then after that, they have 5 full days rest before the first leg of the Champions League semi-finals. 5 full days rest is basically like a normal full given game week. So it's really about, I don't think they'll be worried too much about fatigue with that amount of break between the Crystal Palace game and the Champions League game. So my predictions are, I think Saka almost certainly gets 1 start, could very easily get 2 starts and come away with about 150 minutes or so. 150 minutes would be 2 75-minute performances. But like I said, if they're like trashing Ipswich 3 or 4-0 at half-time and then also do the same to Crystal Palace, I mean, Saka could very easily be pulled off at half-time, but could also be coming off with a whole bunch of points already in the bag. So drop your comments on minutes projections for Saka in the comments below, because this is basically what I'll be using to decide my captaincy this week. Now, Marmoush is the only other captain candidate that I am considering. And I think Marmoush is probably going to get 160 to 180 minutes, and he might have penalties. Now, Saka almost certainly has penalties, although if Odegaard is on the pitch, then there is a small chance that Odegaard takes a penalty. We don't know if Marmoush has penalties. He probably does, but we could see KDB taking a penalty. Maybe even a little more so because he is leaving City, although I think Pep's probably the kind of manager who would just say, whoever the penalty taker is must take the penalties, because of him previously shouting similar things at Haaland on the sideline when he gave away a penalty to, I think it was Gundogan for his hat-trick, which he then missed. And I think it was against Brighton. Brighton went down the other end of the field and scored a goal to make it 2-1. So whoever the main penalty taker is, I think just will take it. I don't think KDB will get too much of a preference unless they're up like 4-0. Maybe KDB. So on the captaincy, I think Arsenal's fixtures are clearly better than City's fixtures. I think Everton away is a tough fixture. Their defence has been relatively good. Aston Villa, maybe not as much good in defence. I don't think they've kept too many clean sheets this season, but Ipswich and Crystal Palace at the moment has to be a whole bunch better. Saka has an extra point for the goals. Is almost certainly on penalties. It's really just down to the minutes, and can Saka do enough damage in the 150 minutes that I'm projecting? Maybe I've got that wrong. Maybe it is only down at around 120 minutes, but I think I'm still going to roll the dice on Saka and just hope that Ipswich and Crystal Palace are both as bad as I think they are going to be, and Saka just pulls in a whole bunch of points even with the reduced minutes projections. But all right, well, that wraps up this video. So don't forget to like and subscribe, and leave us a comment to tell us what you think, especially about Saka's minutes projections for the double game week. Good luck for the game week, everyone. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all again next time.